It's time to relax with the Offspring.
Well, Rob, thank you. So great to have you here. Bass player extraordinary, Rob Trujillo. Thank you for coming down today. This is awesome. Probably our most famous guy on the show.
Definitely the coolest.
So. Yeah.
Definitely
cool.
the coolest.
Okay, yeah. There's a number of categories. Ticks the boxes for. But
well, hang on. You had Fletcher on here.
We had Fletcher. I stand by that. Definitely the coolest.
He would be the craziest guy you had on.
Yeah, definitely the craziest.
Well, Jack from
Congratulations,
TSOL
the coolest.
Jack from TSOL
might
was
give
pretty.
Fletcher a run for his money.
Yeah, boy, there's some stories between the two of them, man. That was something, you know.
Yeah, so no pressure. You're following those guys, you know, like outstanding storytellers.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
go
yeah.
ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Can you beat an elephant story, you know?
Well, probably not. I'll do my best. I'll do my best. You know.
I think one of the coolest things about having you come down and what I wanted to talk about at first was the fact that our lives have kind of been, in a way, kind of parallel. We kind of came up at the same time, although you were more up in L.A. and we were down here. You grew up in Culver City, I guess, right? And we grew up down here in Garden Grove, near here and stuff. And, you know, you were in Suicidal Tendencies and a bunch of other bands, but it's almost like we were kind of in the same zone, but I don't know I'm not sure how often we really cross paths, right? Like, I'll bet you we played shows with you when you were in Suicide. You were in Suicidal till 95?
Yes. Yeah. I started with Suicidal actually in 89 and was there till 96. And then I started playing with Ozzy in 96.
I was still afraid of Suicidal in 89.
I'm still afraid of Suicidal. Like, I'm literally still scared.
I tell you, I love Mike to death. He's one of my best friends till this day. But there was a period there where we didn't talk for about 14 years. You know, when I left to play, with Ozzy, and it was like, scary because am I going to run into him and he's going to, beat my ass or, whatever was going on at the time. We were really close. We did Infectious Grooves together, the band, and had a lot of creative success with that. But, you don't want to piss that dude off. And,
I can imagine.
Now he's got kids and he's settled down a little bit more, but still,
He's still scary. Yeah. Like, I literally saw a Suicidal Tendency play. I was still scared. Like, I'm like, oh.
I just saw him, like, at Pappy and Harriet's and Joshua Tree the other weekend because my son plays bass with him.
Right,
yeah. And it was an amazing show. But
your son plays bass
for Suicidal
now? How rad.
He's been playing with him for almost 3 years.
Wow.
And he has his own band, a couple of bands that he does.
I did a benefit, and he sat in on a couple of songs. Had a Strange 80s thing a few years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Shredding. So,
he's a great player.
So he knows Brandon then. He probably played with Brandon.
Oh, yeah. Brandon and him are tight. Brandon's actually super tight with our family.
Oh, all right.
We've actually...
So this is Brandon Pertzborn for those listening. That's our drummer.
Incredible drummer.
Yeah.
Totally
In fact,
good. Phenomenal.
Josh Freeze, who's super tight with you guys. I, obviously made a few records with him with Suicidal and Infectious Grooves. And also we're great friends. So we do have a lot of the same.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff.
Everybody knows
characters
Josh,
in our
and everybody
lives.
loves Josh.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the first time I heard Suicidal was on Roddy and the Rock. It was institutionalized, right?
For sure.
And it was like, fuck, this is fucking great. Like, I still think, what a classic. I mean, that
totally.
Wow. I mean, amazing, right? And bought the record, of course, and great record. But so I think I probably went to go see him at Fenders in like '86, right?
Right.
We were going to a lot of shows in Fenders back then, right? And it was, as much as I, love the band, it was like, well, I better be careful here.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, they were one of the only bands that had a little gang.
They had their own gang,
after
right?
The Sueys.
Sueys, right?
You got to watch out for
They
the
were
Sueys.
there, and then
back,
and then there'd be the fucking La Mirada LMPs were there, and then there'd be some skinheads thrown in, and there'd be a fight. So you didn't really want to jump in the pit at those shows. So as much as I admire the band, we kind of joke around because I really do like them a lot. But there was something to be very careful about back then.
Yes.
We've met them since then, of course, over the years, and he's great. They're great.
We did the Surf City Blitz with them, 4 years ago now probably, and that was the first time I ever actually met Mike, and couldn't have been nicer.
Yeah,
so I met different guys in the band. I met Mike Clark a couple times.
Yeah. I actually ran into Mike Clark at the Metallica SoFi show a few weeks ago, and I hadn't seen him in about 15 years, and he looked great, seemed great. was pretty cool running into him and catching up.
Right.
So he ended up going there with some mutual friends. There's an artist called Rick Clayton who used to make those kind of homemade shirts, the button-up Suicidal shirts back in the day with Sharpie, and the skulls and the
The rad ones, yeah.
Yeah, Rick played in No Mercy with Mike Muir and Mike Clark, but he was a guest of Rick Clayton, and yeah, so I got to catch up with him, and I'm still tight with Rocky George, who I actually went to junior high school with. He was the lead guitarist, and
that was how you got into the band, right?
Yeah. It's funny because I had like a funk band. That was around the time, Prince was coming up and there was all that. And I kind of had this more funk oriented group. And I had been friends with Rocky since junior high. We were in science together and we'd talk about, music. He started playing guitar, but he was like all mainly into the Rolling Stones and that kind of thing.
Wow. How funny.
Yeah. And then I said, hey, you should check out Jeff Beck and, check out some of these jazz guys, and then he started getting into shred more, more technical stuff. I said, well, then you got to check out Al Di Meola and John McLaughlin and the Mahavishnu Orchestra. So we were geeking out on all these muso-oriented bands because the punk thing was established. We already had that in the neighborhood. I was wearing ST gear way before I joined the band. I mean, I had the hat, I was wearing the shirt. So I was already a fan, and the opportunity kind of came about to where I was able to audition, and the funny thing about it was initially because I had my own band, I had turned it down for maybe 15 minutes.
What was the name of your first band?
I was in a band called True Colors, which was again more on the funky side, and I was picking dudes up in my big, funky Ford station wagon, and guys were living in South Central and Santa Monica. So I was like the taxi driver. They give me like $1 for gas. I was doing construction back then, and it was kind of not great. I mean, the musicians were incredible. Don't get me wrong, but it was just like, I was driving everybody around. It didn't seem like
you were like
there
the
were any
soccer dad of the band.
Yeah, there were no deals on the table. It just wasn't happening. We were playing at Madame Wong's West a lot and kind of playing that circuit, Music Connection. And then Rocky had called and said, hey, we're looking for a bass player, But I had done the audition, and then I had turned it down again for like 15 minutes because I thought about it. And he goes, I said, I got my own band and we got some label interest. Really wasn't true. And then I had this bass teacher, Larry Seymour, who actually ended up playing with Billy Idol, but he was at the time playing with Barry Manilow in Vegas.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, I was telling him about the gig. I don't know if I'm going to take it. And he goes, I'll take that gig. He goes, he goes, I'm bored with Barry, in Vegas. It's, such a boring gig. I'll take that gig. So I had told Rocky, I don't know, I got my band, but Larry Seymour will take the gig. Larry will take it. And he goes, bro, we're going to Europe. It's a arena tour with Anthrax headlining. Oh wow. It's our first legit sort of European run, in the arenas. And you need to think about this. I'll give you till tomorrow, right? And I called him in 15 minutes. I go, I'm in.
Right.
Then the rest is history, But yeah, the folklore with Suicidal goes, way back. And, cousins of mine, some are around the same age, a little older. They were going to shows at the Olympic. And the stories from the Olympic Auditorium are crazy.
Nuts, yeah.
That was that's some other craziness. So I've always sort of been connected with them, and through Rocky, of course, and then eventually just being able to join the band and then creatively do a lot of cool stuff with Mike. And again, like I said, we're still friends now and kind of reunited in the last 10 years or so.
Right.
So how hard was that conversation? Like when you're like, hey, I'm leaving to go to Ozzy.
It was the worst day of my life.
Yeah.
I mean, because,
we're staying the best day probably at that point,
Well, here's the thing is Ozzy for me was the ultimate because I was in a cover band called Oblivion, in high school. and we were playing Sabbath songs. We were playing War Pigs. We were playing Crazy Train. We were playing Ozzy songs.
All the, yeah.
And, you know, we used to even try to mimic Ozzy. We didn't really know who he was, you know, because we didn't know him, but we would try to talk like him, and it was just kind of silly. But he was really that iconic to us. He was like this godlike figure. So when Mike and I were doing the Infectious Grooves album, it just so happened that we were on the same label. We were on Epic, and Ozzy was recording in the same studio, you know, over at Devonshire, and we were sharing the compound together for that month. And he would sneak into our studio, and you know, and it got to the point where it was like, we got to get him on a song. So Ozzy, agreed to sing on this song called Therapy, and then we didn't know when it was going to happen because, you know, he wasn't really great at scheduling. You know, it's kind of like,
I get that.
More of a left brain.
You know,
I'm shocked. I'm shocked to hear this.
Yeah, we were trying to find it. You know, we didn't know what, you know, and he literally came in the middle of us tracking something, but we were like, yeah, of course. You know, he came in, he was like, all right, anyway, which song do you want me to sing on? I'm ready. And it was like, oh shit, I'm not ready. So anyway, you know, the rest is history. And he loved the song so much that he would sneak into the studio, into the control room, you know, at all hours, and he would start doing his little Ozzy dance with his hand and, you know, and his head bopping. And he loved bass, thankfully. So, you know, he always appreciated, you know, what I did, you know, with Infectious. And, you know, his minder would come looking for him because sometimes he'd disappear, and he'd be like, is Ozzy in here? And we'd be like, no, you know, and Ozzy would hide from the minders. So, you know, it was like crazy. It was like herding cats, you know. And eventually, you know, we recorded the song, actually did a video with him, and he actually wanted us to tour with him. And we didn't really have a band at the time. We had friends that played on the album, like Stephen Perkins and James.
Yeah, of course. He's probably my all-time favorite drummer.
He was at that time. I'm telling you, he was scary good because he was so tribal. You know, he had.
I think that's what
for sure. Monster.
His creativity was incredible, and on that first album, you know, songs like "Punk It Up" and the song "Infectious Grooves." To me, and this is my opinion, the song "Infectious Grooves" was really unique in that he was playing this hip hop beat to this metal groove, which hadn't really ever happened except for, you know, Sabbath. You know, I equate it to that because Bill Ward was doing to some of those crazy grooves like Sweet Leaf or something.
Okay, right.
Yeah, so that was great, and then he had to leave. You know, Perry was like a neighbor of mine in Venice at that time. And Perry was not too happy about him jamming with us. And I'd run into Perry at 7-Eleven at 2 in the morning. And I remember this one time, he was like, we had rehearsed with Steven earlier in the day, and Perry was, and this was so crazy, he was in a pickup truck with some like interesting sort of Hesher stoner skater character, and they had like a motorcycle in the back and furniture. It was like they went into a storage unit and just packed the truck. And this is the guy that's doing like Lollapalooza and like worth, you know, selling millions of records. And he was like, hey man, what's going on, Rob? He's like, hey bro, did you see Steven today? And I was like, yes. We had rehearsal. Can I cuss in this?
Sure.
Oh,
Go
and I was like, oh man, fuck, man, shit. And I'm like, oh, what's up? And he's going, dude, he was supposed to rehearse with us, and he never showed up. Man, you know, he was just, and this is when they were going to start doing pornos for Pyro. So Perry wasn't too happy about it. And, of course, not too long after that, Steven ended up jumping ship, and that was kind of crazy. Understandable, though, you know, and the rest is history. And then, of course, we were able to get Josh Freese in the band. And that was, you know, another sort of chapter.
He's all right, I hear.
He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's okay.
Yeah. I mean, and you know how it is. There's stories with everybody. You know, it's an adventure, you know. Chapters in a band are just, filled
Wasn't
with.
Brooks one of your guys too? Was
Brooks-
Brooks in the band too?
Brooks-
yeah.
Yeah, Brooks came in at 15, and basically he was rehearsing at Mates next door to Infectious and Suicidal Tendencies. I think he was 14 with a band called Bad for Good, and that was sort of this teen, kind of like I don't know, exceptional players.
Okay,
the
right,
guitar
right.
player was this phenomenal young player, and Brooks was in there. And they had this young band produced by Steve Vai. And we'd see these dudes kind of playing on the wall and stuff, what 14-year-olds do, and I'd hear the drums through the other room, and I was like, who's that drummer? He's amazing, I was like, he had the feel for Infectious, the band. And when we were auditioning drum, I'm not going to mention any names, but there's this one drummer who's actually doing really well now, who was basically, I was certain he was getting the gig. So I just wanted to check Brooks out to kind of warm us up. So I talked to Brooks and said, hey, you want to come down and jam with us a little? We're going to play with this other guy. And I was certain the other guy was in. He already knew the set. He knew the live set, everything. And Brooks killed it. I mean, he was so amazing. Then I was really confused. Like, oh, wait a minute, this dude's perfect, but he's too young. Yeah. And I remember calling him and saying, you're perfect for the band. We're going on tour. We're going to Europe. To Australia, and all that. And I said, but you're too young. He goes, well, I play with guys a lot older than you. He was like
The Vandals.
Yeah, he was like,
yeah.
And by the way, Vandals, Joe Escalante, he was my attorney. He did my deal.
Oh, really?
Joe Escalante did my
Right.
deal. Yeah, for Metallica.
That's right.
He handled my paperwork.
There you go.
Man. Oh, man.
That's why I'm saying a lot of mutual friends. But
Yeah.
Brooks and I are still super tight. We still jam. I come down to Garden Grove and get over. Is it the bomb shelter?
Oh yeah. Right on
Okay.
Garden Grove Boulevard. I
Yeah.
used to work right around the corner from
Yeah.
there at an Army surplus store when I was in high school.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, all these musicians, but to be I've been in a rehearsal studio. I've never rehearsed next to Ozzy, right? What?
Right.
How amazing
Yeah.
is that? Who have we ever rehearsed next to?
No Doubt back in the day. I remember we were all like, oh my God, that's No Doubt.
Right.
Checking them out, and then I'd see Tony's head looking through the window at us.
I was gonna say Leatherwolf. There's probably the most famous
Leatherwolf.
band we ever.
Yeah, do you remember
rehearsed
Leatherwolf?
next to.
I do.
Yeah.
I remember.
They were the
Leather-
shit, man. The shit in Garden
Yeah.
Grove,
Yeah,
Trojan
totally.
Studios, I think it was,
Yeah.
right? They had their own a showcase room. Actually, they were.
Yeah.
Well, they had their own locker there.
They had their own locker. That
We
was
could- we
big.
could only
That
afford-
was big stuff.
They had
You know.
all those bands had big stuff.
Well,
I
I-
remember Stryper in the
Oh, yeah.
production. that
Yeah.
They had and all these.
They were
bands.
the Christian metal band.
They
Stryper.
were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I trip out on how many members of Suicidal Tendencies have been poached for other bands, right? And Mike Muir is probably one of the scariest motherfuckers in any band. And so
the last guy you want to poach from.
I just it perplexes me. Why are all these fucking bands taking Mike Muir's? The guy fucking wrote a crazy song about just a fucking Pepsi, and all these fucking guys, they're just taking band members, right? I never understood that.
Well,
Well, he's always picked good musicians.
Yeah.
He always, that's a fact,
true.
right?
Yeah.
He definitely has an ear for quality musicians,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah, he loves rhythm section. So
Yeah.
he's,
Well, who's the drummer now? Eric Moore?
Well, his name that was a while ago. That
Was it?
that was a pretty long time ago. Right now, a guy called Grayson. I can't pronounce his last name, like Knickerbocker, and he's gonna kill me. But anyway, Grayson.
Okay.
He's from the East Coast. He's phenomenal. And then Brandon was before
Right.
him, and then Dave Lombardo from Slayer was in
Yep.
there
Yeah.
for a while, and
That guy's not bad.
he's not bad. And
Dude,
then
have you seen him with the Misfits?
I have not seen him
Oh.
in person with the Misfits,
Okay,
but I have. When Dave joined ST, and I saw them open for Megadeth, I was like, there it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
cool. I mean, it was interesting that he was playing with Eric Moore and some of those badass drummers that really did come from sort of the gospel circuit. A lot of
Right.
the gospel chop guys. But when they got Dave in there, that thrash feel, that just
Right,
hard
right,
edge,
right.
just the
Heavy.
thunder. The thunder was so, maximized
Heavy, fast,
again.
but solid.
Yeah,
too.
solid, yeah.
For sure.
That's
what he brought to the Misfits, and
Yeah.
it's fucking incredible.
Yeah. He's really an amazing drummer. I mean, they're all great, and it's sort of I don't know, it's kind of this pedigree position now, to get in there and get in Suicidal and do your time, get into the thick of it, and then maybe that'll sort of catapult you to join, the Offspring.
Well, that's why we actually
Ozzy.
they wanted to have you on to just make sure, to see if Mike Mira was mad about them taking Brandon. Like, everything's cool, right?
right?
Like,
No,
can you let them know that everything's cool? They don't want any trouble. Like,
No, again, Mike has a lot of respect for you guys, and
we even discussed that with Brandon, and Brandon said that Mike was like, "Wow, man, good for you." He was happy for him, and he said they had another guy lined up that was that they were happy with. So,
everything's cool, everybody's cool, but
good.
I mean,
yeah, they actually had to have Mike Mira sign off on them taking Brandon before they're like, "Listen, we don't want any trouble with the Suicidals." Like,
no,
It's
man.
like asking your father-in-law for permission.
Yeah.
He had to ask Mike if it was okay.
Yeah. Mike, this is cool, right? We don't want any problems.
So you were with Ozzy at the Weenie Roast in
2000.
Yeah.
I'm
I think that might have been the first time we shared a stage.
That's what I'm trying to think about. Like, when would that have been? We did a show with Suicidal in Spain, like in '97.
Yeah, but I
don't think you were there anymore.
Yeah,
you were gone already?
I was gone because I had joined Ozzy's band in '96. So yeah, at that point
It's called the
I would've-
Festa Mad, and we called it the Festa Mud because it was really muddy.
Yeah,
But I think it was Fletcher, and I think it was Mike Clark from Suicidal. They destroyed our dressing room. We got off stage and went backstage and like literally pulled the walls down. It was,
they did.
It's a modular kind of thing, temporary.
I didn't think they were mad at us though. It was just for
I
fun.
think it was just fucking around.
Yeah.
It was just
Yeah.
hazing,
fun.
it was good natured.
That's
Oh,
what
if
it
they were
is.
mad at you,
Amazing.
if they were mad at you, you'd get fucking you'd know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It wouldn't be the walls that were torn down,
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of crazy history, especially with Mike Clark. I mean, he was an animal, but he was a good man. He obviously still is, but he encouraged me to write. Right off the bat when I joined Suicide, it was like, "You got any good ideas? Please, bring them in. You got to write songs, man. You got to write songs. That's what it's all about."
And you ended up writing a lot of stuff with Ozzy, right?
I actually, with Ozzy, I wrote some songs for him on an album that wasn't one of his best, called Down to Earth, but on this recent album, actually during COVID, I co-wrote his new record with
Wow, right on.
Chad Smith.
That's awesome.
And Taylor Hawkins, rest
Wow,
in peace, my brother, and Andrew Watt, and that was cool to especially during that time when everything is locked down and you're just sort of forced to, but we
Good
were
for you,
able,
man. I didn't know you did that. That's,
I didn't either,
that's
yeah.
incredible, man.
Yeah, it was cool. The single Patient Number 9 was actually, most of that music was my music, and
great.
Jeff Beck
That's
played
awesome.
the solo on it.
Yeah.
It's a great song. It just made my Halloween playlist too.
Oh,
It's
cool.
perfect for Halloween. Perfect for
There
the
you go.
season.
Yeah, it's seasonal.
Well, no, it's not just seasonal, but
Yeah.
I like heavy stuff year round. But
It was great to reconnect with Ozzy and help with that, and also it was great for me just creatively to be able to be a part of that kind of a situation where I was playing with these great drummers and a great production team and everything. So yeah, that he got a couple Grammys out of it, which was nice.
nice.
Yeah, it's good. It's
right
good.
on. How long did you end up playing with Ozzy the first time over?
7 years.
7 years.
Yeah,
Right,
7 years. Yeah, and he reunited with Sabbath, so some of those years, we weren't working as much.
Right.
There was a lot of kind of waiting.
Right, because when we played, I think Sabbath was the secret.
Yes, that was at the beginning of everything.
Them starting.
Right.
The comeback, yeah.
There was so many people on that. That was a crazy bill. Like,
Was No Doubt on that too?
They
Maybe,
were that
yeah.
day.
No
yeah.
doubt, Black Sabbath,
I know.
just
they
makes
got it all.
sense.
CP, Stone Temple Pilots was on it.
Yeah.
Moby. Lit, us. I think our Keep 'Em Separated guy was
Pauly Shore, wasn't it?
Well, I think it was Pauly Shore and Dennis Rodman.
Dennis Rodman.
We had him
Rodman,
go head
yeah.
to head. We had two Keep 'Em Separated
yeah,
guys.
I was left out.
Yeah.
What the fuck, right? Like
That sounds like a scary combination.
I was there, but everybody but me. Like,
Yeah.
But I was telling you guys earlier, I had one of my first girlfriends was there, and hadn't seen her since high school, and this is like, we're talking 9th grade, and she was in tears backstage apologizing for breaking up with me from 1982.
Who's sorry now? Who's sorry now? Right?
Yeah,
I bet she's watching now.
Yeah, that was just really strange. I'm like walking backstage, Robert. Like, hey, how's it going?
How funny.
Yeah. I thought you were going to work for UPS. I had no idea. Take me back.
I'll watch you back.
But I mean, it must have been surreal. Like even when you're talking about Suicidal Tendencies. I mean, like as far as the punk metal thing, they were big.
Legendary,
band,
right?
Dude, they were, listen, they were a totally different thing. Like, I grew up in Whittier, right? And so, I mean, but a lot of the stuff I was, kind of influenced on was a lot of the Orange County stuff, right? The DI and TSOL. And then you get Suicidal Tendencies. I think joined the Army, right? And it's just like a fucking kick in the teeth, right? Like, you're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, but
This is
hang on a second. I'm saying that like that's one level, and then all of a sudden, then to go to Ozzy, I'm talking about like Surreal. It must have really been.
I want to talk about Suicidal Tendencies being a kick in the teeth. Like,
there was a lot of teeth getting kicked. I'm sure, and I'm sure Ozzy had his run with teeth kicking as well, and.
But that had to be kind of.
But both those bands are. I mean, like Ozzy and Suicidal Tendencies are seriously, like you said, kick in the teeth fucking bands, right?
Yeah.
They're like genre changing, like they're like right there, fucking cutting edge shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For
But
both
how,
for the
how
time.
was that for you? You're one of the biggest punk metal thrash bands ever. But when you went to Ozzy, you jumped up a level. How was that transition for you?
It was surreal. I remember, playing my second show in Vegas with him, and we started. I think it was maybe Sweet Leaf or Iron Man, one of those two songs. And what he would do, and I was warned about this. They said Ozzy's gonna fuck with you, and he's gonna.
Of course he is.
He's gonna either pull your hair or he's gonna scratch you. And I remember at the time the guitar player was Joe Holmes. And Joe Holmes said, you got to be careful because he gets crazy and he's going to come up to you and he's going to do something.
You gotta start doing shit like that.
Yeah.
And he had done that to Zakk Wylde, I remember, because Zakk came on board 2 or 3 years later, and I was playing with Zakk, after Joe, and Zakk would get really pissed at Ozzy because Ozzy would grab Zakk's hair.
Zack's a crazy motherfucker too.
Yeah, and he was crazy back then, and he would grab Zakk's beard, and then Zakk and I were sharing a tour bus because I was working with Black Label Society, and we were on tour, and it's just the two of us on this bus, and there's a lot of beer getting, getting thrown down, and he start like describing what Ozzy did to him, but he would start doing it on me. So he would like, you know what I mean? He grabbed my hair, and he grabbed my hair, and he goes, and then he grabbed my beard, and
Not
then
a small guy, Zakk, either. Not a small
and
guy.
he grabbed my beard, and then he punched me in the chest. You know what I mean? And I'm like,
Yeah, he's
dude.
never like, hey,
Mellow
give me a
out.
big hug, and then he just kind of held me. Like,
Demonstrating.
I mean, the demonstration stuff, was brutal,
Hurts.
with him.
Oh, man.
But Ozzy, so what he would do with us is he would spray us with these water cannons. And it would piss us off because again in our electronics and every night we'd have to Joe would get so pissed, and I started going barefoot basically because my shoes were full of water, and I go, it'd be summertime, and I go, I'm going barefoot, man, I had enough of this. But I mean, so he one night on the second show, going back to that, he got in my face, and then I kind of went lower. He went lower. I went lower. He went lower. I went lower. Next thing you know, we're in this sumo wrestling position, and we're dancing in a circle. You know what I mean? Like we're gonna square off. And that's how the world famous crab walk was created.
Really? That's the
Ozzy.
story, huh?
That's
Whoa.
funny.
Ozzy was
Great
the
story.
instigator and the choreographer for this
Wow.
moment, which
Okay.
I try to celebrate, here and there.
Does that
when I
help
can.
with your surfing, by the way?
Well,
Crab walk?
I did come from board sports, so
Okay. Yeah.
I when I was a teenager, I skated, and then I really got into snowboarding. I mean, but then around the time I joined Metallica in 2003, I kind of stopped. I was just worried about injuring
Wrists,
myself.
breaking wrists. Yeah, totally.
Because I was
Same.
really getting into it. It's just that time when I was waiting for Ozzy, and, when I was in a solo band and Ozzy started doing Sabbath, I had a lot of downtime. So I just started snowboarding like crazy. And I remember one of my friends from Japan, he was a snowboarder too, and he'd come out here and snowboard with me. And then, he saw that I was like training on a trampoline and I was doing all this crazy stuff. And then I had gotten like a hernia or something. And he was like, he goes, well, you're not professional snowboarder. you bass player. You bass player. What you doing? And I was like, and I basically goes like, you know what? This dude is right. And he's like, snowboarding with me and he's telling me this. It's like, what are you doing, man? It's like, yeah, you're right. So I started practicing again and got back
But that's
into
what
music.
probably, that competitive, I'm doing this, I'm going to be as good as I can get at this. And that's how
Right.
you end up being on top of your game as a bass player.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's when I joined Metallica, it was kind of crazy because they didn't really tell me what to do or what songs we were going to play. So I was kind of on my own trying to figure it out, trying to research the set lists and everything. And when I came on board, as far as I could tell, they hadn't been playing, their sort of classic thrash songs as much. So I was kind of learning. I was in the dark trying to figure this out. And I'd ask one guy, I'd ask James, what's the set going to look like? What do you think the set's going to look like? And then I'd ask Lars and I'd ask Kirk, and they were all different. Like the sets were were different basically. And fortunate for me, because I wasn't too familiar with the Load and Reload albums, and I think part of the reason I got the gig was I had done I played on a Metallica tribute record, and Dave Lombardo was the drummer, and we played a battery together.
Okay.
And it was pretty cool. And I knew that, so I knew that song, and that's a pretty complicated song, I think, for just somebody to go in.
Totally.
It's different
Heck
than
yeah.
it's different than playing Sandman or something,
Right.
So I was able to play that with them, and they were impressed. But I was in Tahiti just before that, and I had called because back then you would call your voicemail, and on the voicemail were Lars and Kirk, and Lars is like, so yeah, we want you to come down and jam with us.
Oh my God.
Come jam with Metallica, bro. And
That is a really good impersonation, dude. That is really good. Yeah.
So, I'm just like, oh, what, holy crap, it's like, it's like Thursday and I'm getting a call to come jam with them. So I reached out and I said, I'll be in for a birthday party. I was flying in to LA, and then I was going to a Saturday night party for Mike Borden, a drummer of Faith No More.
Right.
And dear friend, obviously, from my years with him playing when he played drums in Ozzy's band. And I'm going to, I think it would have been his 40th at the time. And I go there, but when Lars had known I was going to be there on Saturday, he was like, "Oh, great, you can come in on Monday." And I'm like, "Oh my God, it's Thursday. I'm in Tahiti," and I'm, so that's when I auditioned. And then the other thing that was weird is he tested me. They always talk about hazing, and I've been asked that. So my hazing, a couple things. My hazing, when Suicidal Tendencies toured with Metallica, we opened for them in Europe and in the States in 93 and 94. And there was a night in Madrid when I drank a bottle of Jaeger with Lars and James, and I drank 3/4 of it for sure. I was like hallucinating. Yeah. We had a flight the next day, and I always say, well, that was part of the hazing process. It happened, whatever.
That counts.
Back in 1993 or something, and then going back to my audition we were leaving the parking lot, and Lars kind of stopped me. He goes, "Hey, you want to go get a drink? It's about 11 o'clock at night." Because basically you would go to the studio and you'd hang out from 11 a.m. till like 11 at night, and you're just a fly on the wall. It was really weird. And so then all of a sudden he's like, "Let's go get a drink." I said, "Okay." And I swear we drank until 5 in the morning. And I think that was him seeing how I could handle my booze at that time, and that I didn't go crazy or try to kill anybody. And
That's important.
So so I could handle it.
Well, you did come from Suicidal, so
Yeah.
it's like,
yeah. So
And that alcohol tolerance, that's true. That's something you're going to look at in a new guy, right?
it's true, right? I mean, especially at that time, times have changed since then, but so I guess I passed that test too. But the problem was the next morning I was so hungover, and he's on a treadmill at 9 a.m. We went to bed I was stayed in his guest room, but I hear like somebody in the workout room kind of next to the guest room, and I look, and it's him. He's on his treadmill, and then he's like, "Come on, bro, we got to go." I mean, it's like I was like a stranger now, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, so I'm following him. I got this headache. I'm following him to the studio, and then back then they were doing these sort of therapy sessions before.
All right, with Dr. Phil.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Well, we saw him. I mean, anyone who's seen the movie.
The movie.
Yeah. So, that was going on, and I was just sitting there with this horrible
Hangover.
headache, and I'm like, and I was almost I'd go in the bathroom and put water on my face, and I was almost gonna say, "Guys, I don't feel good. I got to go home," but I said, no, you got to hang in there. And then we ended up, jamming, and that went really well for it. I just wanted to like play and not be asked questions and that whole thing, and
especially with a hangover.
Yeah. It was heavy.
Yeah.
So the bass tech, who's been Zach Harmon, who's been with him forever, he was actually my bass tech with when I played in Suicidal, when we were opening for Metallica in 93 and 94. Well, actually, maybe it was like 6 weeks or something. He was my tech, and I got along with him real well, and I hadn't seen him since then. So I was like, okay, I devised this plan. I'm gonna tell them that I want to get my gear situated and pick my basses I'm gonna play, and amps, and because I just they had all the gear for me, and I basically was able to get with Zach and get detour myself from this crazy situation. Just them finding out that I was still drunk or whatever. It was just so, and then I made it through all that and survived, but it was
that's fucking crazy, dude. Like, so I'm the keep them separated guy. I got to say that one fucking line with my favorite band.
Oh yeah.
You've literally, like, you were all into Suicidal. You joined Suicidal. You're all into fucking Black Sabbath. You joined Black Sabbath. Same with fucking Metallica. Like, you've joined all your favorite bands. What the fuck?
I've been fortunate, man. I don't know what to
That's
say.
That's beyond fortunate. Holy fuck.
But the thing
that's
with
Mega Millions fucking fortunate, man. That's
the thing with Metallica that I gotta say is back then you could party your ass off or whatever, but when you get up on stage, you got to play for the 2 hours plus, and there's not a lot of room for error, And
it's a big difference from Fender's Ballroom to fucking Dodger Stadium, right? Like,
yeah, everything in between.
Fuck.
Yeah. But there was a lot of pressure. Yeah, I mean, I was surprised
Bob
managed it.
So they found you from, like, the reason that you were auditioning, they just from when you guys toured with them with Suicidal, or?
Well, that's a good question. They remembered me from the Suicidal, when we did open for Metallica. So they remembered that, and they also Kirk. We had a mutual friend who surfed, and Kirk was coming down to LA in an RV with this mutual friend and a couple other buddies, and they wanted to surf in LA County, and they knew I knew the spots, so I took them to to Manhattan Beach. We surfed there, and I took them to
Porto or
Ventura. Yeah, El Porto, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
We surfed El Porto. We surfed Zuma. We surfed up at County Line in Ventura and all that.
Oh, rad.
So we kind of had a week together, and he and I just really hit it off. we didn't talk a whole lot about their situation. I was playing in Ozzy's band, and eventually they were going to have to look for bass players, of course. And that's how he ended up. Lars and Kirk ended up kind of giving me a buzz. So I was kind of Kirk's guy. Everybody kind of brought in their guy, and then they had,
fucking duke it out with all the other guys.
What were you gonna say, Noodles?
Bob just told us this story the other day that he was there for that whole process.
He was.
They were trying out people, and wow, this guy's really good. This guy's really good. This guy's really good. But no one was going, that's the guy until you came in. And he said, when you came in, they all go, that's the guy. And Bob goes, that is your guy.
Right. Yeah, Bob. He was great in that he was supportive and he was excited to work with me. So it was cool. But he had already tracked the bass on the album, so when I came in, the bass tracks were done. And I remember this uncomfortable moment where Lars and James were going to go get some lunch or something, and they basically said, we're in the control room, and Bob's there sitting sort of behind on the couch, and the assistant engineer is there, and he goes, Lars says, I'm like, we'd like you to take a shot at tracking some bass on this song. Sane anger. Take a crack at it. See what you can do. We'll be back. Take your time. And I was like, no, but I was like, oh shit, they want me to track. And so I pick a bass and I'm sitting there with the assistant engineer. I look back at Bob and I'm like, okay, and he didn't look happy. So start, recording, and I don't know what I play, whatever I played, something. And then I look back at him because he's the producer, and I said, so how's that? And he said, I don't know. I already tracked all the bass. He was like, kind of like what he was really saying was, I don't know why they're making you do this, because the album is we've already tracked the bass on this album, and you don't need to be doing this.
They're fucking with you.
No wonder Bob.
That was part of the hazing.
No wonder Bob wasn't stoked about it.
Yeah, so
just replace my bass track, bro.
Yeah, it was just a weird moment.
Bob didn't tell us that story.
Yeah, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, but I mean, again, he had recorded the bass and everything, was fine and cool, and but anyway, yeah. So I just remember looking at him, and I didn't know him that well, so I was kind of like, so how's that? And he goes, I don't know.
Man,
I was ready for him to say, let's go to the parking lot, bro. Hey, Bob, no, I don't want no problems, but
yeah, that doesn't sound like how he normally is, right?
Right.
That's
funny.
great. That's too funny.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's fucking cool though, man. Like I said, dude, you've fucking done it all, man. Literally have played with all the fucking cool bands all the way. So influential, such influential bands. You know what I mean?
It would be like you playing with Mariah Carey.
Dude, I got.
Blackball's a huge and legit Mariah Carey fan.
Yeah, I literally have a giant tattoo of her on my leg.
Well, she's a tough cookie now. I mean, when we were leaving we did the Global Citizens show.
Oh my God.
And she was on the bill with us.
I'm getting hard.
And she had her faction.
Okay, yeah.
She has a tribe. She's got a posse.
And
her posse was blocking the road.
So
and
fucking hot.
We couldn't get, took us a while to get through, and I think it was intentional.
That's so hot.
They were like a gang. I'm not kidding, man. Yeah. She had a gang going. This was recent, too.
That's so fucking cool.
Wow. That's cool.
Mariah's gangster,
cool.
man.
Yeah,
come on.
That is so fucking cool. Suicidal's gangster. I've been so scared to see them, growing up.
Well, watch out for Mariah, though. Bro,
listen, I got a restraining order, so that's not even an issue at this point. But Suicidal, I was scared for years to see those guys. Right, I actually have tickets to see them in Seattle on November 30th. But yeah, which I'm super stoked on.
Well, they're really great right now.
Should I be scared?
Yeah.
That was actually my question. Is it okay for me to go?
I just saw them out in Pappy and Harriet's and Joshua Tree, and
such a great venue. I love it out there. I saw Otoboke Beaver out there.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah. I mean, you guys, blow the place up, man. It's just a fun, true to the, to the
Did you get some barbecue when you were out there?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
It's a vibe. It's like stepping back in time and like a bar brawl in the Western era, but punk rock style. It still happens. No barrier, and it's
it's
off the hook.
Yeah. So
fucking
you got to
awesome,
play
dude.
Happy and Harriet's, but recently you guys also played SoFi Stadium and outsold Taylor Swift 2 nights
Fucking
at SoFi Stadium.
T-Swift.
That's
Oh,
what I
wow.
heard. Yeah.
Yeah, T Swift.
T Swift.
She's the real deal, I guess.
She's
but,
great. Yeah.
You know, I mean, yeah.
But in
she sold
LA
more merch though.
In LA, she did our t-shirt numbers. Yeah. All those bracelets.
I don't know if we got her there.
All those beads and bracelets,
yeah,
but you did
It's
sell
insane.
more
Dude, that's
you put more
fucking
butts and
insane.
That's
seats
so great.
at
Yeah.
SoFi
So cool.
Stadium. So that's
Rock and
rad.
roll. Rock and
How
roll.
were, how were the shows? I mean, local hometown shows. Any
Must have been great.
ex-girlfriends show up in tears?
No, not that I could tell.
Yeah.
You know, LA shows are always interesting because, you know, people sometimes they say, oh, you know, LA, you know, sometimes you hear the unfortunate term posers and this and that and all that, but those shows in LA were freaking the best
Had to
shows
be,
that we
yeah,
played.
Awesome.
Well,
I mean,
that's fucking
when
old.
Jason Momoa's in the pit holding it down,
Yeah.
I saw those pictures.
That's
That
pretty
was
scary.
fucking
Yeah,
insane.
yeah.
Oh man.
Dude, no, but I mean, those things are way beyond you, though, right? Where you're still called poser, like.
well, yeah, okay. So basically, what ended up happening at SoFi, and it was pretty much like a Mad Max, you know, kind of scene. SoFi is already surreal.
Yeah.
And they got that big black video wall, that circular video
Yeah.
wall that hovers above. And we have these big black towers, you know, and it almost looked like, and the towers are video, you know, trons, and there's cylinders, and they already look like Star Wars or something. So all of a sudden, you know, between the towers and this big, massive, you know, radius structure above, it looked like chandeliers hanging from above, and then you had, you know, you can kind of see the exterior, you can outside, and then it's subterranean, so it goes underground, like 4 stories.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole thing was already surreal. So you had basically the crowd was cross between, you know, you had strong Hispanic contingent.
Yeah. I love that about LA. We get a lot of we
Yeah.
got a strong following in that community, and I
mean,
love
yeah.
it. Yeah.
You know, I just get to the point. A lot of cholos.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
The cholo
Yeah.
fucking punk, the cholo
My people,
metal scene.
my people,
Love
Yeah.
it.
representing from all, you know, all parts of LA,
Yeah.
and
Awesome.
also NorCal, San Diego, Inland Empire, OC.
I bet.
Dude,
Yeah.
I
Ventura.
totally get it. Like, I mean,
See?
well, I grew up in I mean, like I said, in Whittier.
Right.
And so
They were
many
there.
of my friends
Yeah,
are
Whittier was
like are cholo punks, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
I have so many friends that if you look at them, they just look like cholos, but they all listen to fucking punk rock, and that's literally who I grew up with, and that's why, like, you know, even like when I'd go see the fucking Offspring at you know, Hong Kong Cafe,
Hong Kong
right?
Cafe, I remember,
and there'd be
yeah.
Nazis there, and here I am with all the fucking, you know, my fucking 15 little fucking, you know, 5'2" Mexican friends,
That's
right?
because you know,
It-
let's. I mean, the fact is you're you know, you have a special place in the history of the Offspring,
Yeah.
and your voice has definitely. It's the bait for the Hispanic community. I know what bait is.
But even before that, like we were playing Hong Kong Cafe before
Yeah.
Smash, and we would get tons of
Yeah. Well, like I
you
said,
know.
it was like I said, I grew up in Whittier, Santa Fe Springs, and the majority of 90% of my friends are all Hispanics, right? My wife is Hispanic, and that's just where we grew up, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
so it was just like I said, it was one of those things where I literally fought Nazis all the fucking time, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, in the 90s, there was just a lot of fucking Nazis, and I look at I was like,
late
fuck.
80s, early 90s.
Yeah,
by the
early
the 90s, they
90s
were kind of on their way
well,
out. Late
early
80s, for
90s,
sure,
late
though.
80s,
Yeah,
and
totally.
there was a couple of times. I remember one show.
Well, wait, when did I get stabbed? That was 89.
80s. Yeah.
I remember there was one show. It was God, I think it was
right.
in
You got
Santa
stabbed.
Monica.
Stabbed by a skinhead. Yeah.
Santa Monica, where I saw all these fucking Nazi skinhead girls, right? And I said, "Fuck you guys." I said, "Where's your boyfriends? I'll fucking fuck them up." And then I said, you know what? All 4 of you against me. And then I was like, all 4 of you against my girlfriend, who was my wife at the time. And she looks at me all bright, like big eye, like, what the fuck are you saying?
Yeah.
And then a couple of my other friends are like, and me too, bitch. You know, these other girls. And it was this big fucking fight. I was an Offspring, Bad Religion show at the Santa Monica.
Santa Monica.
Yeah, Bad Religion, Offspring. Fuck, it was crazy.
But you're
With
saying
the
that
Muffs.
they're all into punk, but they're into punk and Metallica. That was the
Yeah.
thing. And
Yeah.
Metallica really crossed that barrier
Metallica.
between punk
Well,
and...
Metallica, Suicidal. Like I said, you've been in all the fucking crossover bands, right?
Well,
like, I mean, it's just the shit that you've done is pretty fucking surreal. So honestly, like for me to kind of be sitting across from you, it's like I'm fucking stoked.
And I feel the same way about you. You know,
Yeah,
with
well,
you,
listen,
you know,
if
like
you
I
ever need to
said-
keep them separated, guy,
Yeah.
any band, you let Mike Muir know I will be fucking loyal. Keep him whatever he fucking needs. Metallica, whoever.
How
Two
many,
double
how,
doubles.
many, how many takes did it take for you to nail
One. Like, I got it done right, like on the first try. Or
We did
second?
two. We did two takes.
2 takes.
But I think,
Takes.
I don't know if we... No, I think we took the second one.
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
One or
Yeah.
two takes.
You did a
So
warm
we,
up take and then you hit
I
it.
did pretty good, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I wanted a guy with that kind of voice.
Yeah.
And I thought about using a voiceover company even, and
Yeah.
there was some place in North Hollywood. But this crazy guy, Knucklehead, he was at our shows, and he kept on yelling for us to play like one of our deep cuts.
Right.
yeah, I wanted
A
him to
song
play
called
Blackball,
Blackball,
right?
that's
So
why
that was
we-
the song I fucking. So when I got an Offspring, I got I literally got. I mean, I seen them a couple of times, and they were just kind of like one of the bands that played before the bands I liked, right? But then I got
Before Pennywise.
I got
or,
Ignition.
Seriously, yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
no
I-
effects.
Yeah.
Exactly, and I got Ignition when it came out. And I was
Before
like,
DI.
this is so fucking good. I fucking love this shit. And then and then so my like I was like, holy shit, they have a fucking record before that. So I drove to fucking Vinyl Solution as soon as I fucking heard that. I went to Vinyl Solution that day, bought the record, and I fucking fell in love with it like instantly. Like, and I just played it nonstop.
This was the first record?
Yeah, the
Okay.
first record.
With
I got
Blackball on
it
it, the
after,
song
and so I
Blackball.
was like, and Blackball was a song that I fucking loved, and they never played it, and I was like,
Right.
fucking
He was
play
3 years
Blackball.
too late. We were,
Yeah,
we were done playing
Yeah,
that song.
right. They would have
Yeah,
fucking.
we were
And so
done.
I'm like yelling at play Blackball, play Blackball.
Yeah.
And so then Noodles comes up to me and says, "Dude, if we play Blackball, will you shut the fuck up?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I swear to God."
Yeah.
And so then they decided to play Blackball, and then. Like 2 songs later, I was yelling at him to play Blackball again.
Right.
And then here we are. Fast
Yeah,
forward
we
to
are,
now.
It all
He
happened with a
wouldn't
song.
shut up. He's yelling at us. He's
Right.
angry. He's
Yeah.
in this gang of cholos
Yeah.
yelling at us. Like, we're like, we either got to run from this guy or we got to become friends
Yeah.
with him.
Right.
And so we
Yeah.
became friends with him.
Yeah,
We've been
and
friends
so,
ever since.
but I mean, it was fucking awesome. And I, like I said, I was excited. Like Dexter called me. He's just like, "Hey, dude, will you come down to the studio?" And I'm like, "Yeah, fuck yeah," you know, like, so I went down and I recorded it, and
Did you know what you were coming down for, or you just
no
you just
idea,
came- yeah,
no idea.
showed
He
up?
just told me. He goes,
he said
"Hey,
double
dude."
doubles. And
Yeah, he goes, "Hey,
Blackball
dude."
said, I'll be there.
Yeah, he called me and just like, "Hey, dude, come down to the studio." And I'm like, "All right." And I went down to the studio, recorded it, and yeah, like I said, here we are.
The rest
And
is
You can tell
the
the
rest
first
is
take,
fucking
it was,
history.
yep, that's what I'm looking for, right?
Yeah,
we had him
yeah.
do it one more time.
Yeah,
but it was pretty
and
much
so,
there.
and again, I'm just a product of my neighborhood, right? I grew up with,
Yeah, we all are. You know.
and you know, and so like I said, all my friends
Are
were
they
like
all
these
loud and
fucking,
obnoxious like you? Is that what you mean?
yeah, kind of
neighborhood full of loud, obnoxious?
Probably not as obnoxious, but yeah, like I said, and we were always, like I said, me and all my friends were always super fucking stoked on Suicidal, and that was, and I remember my first show, my very first show was at Fender's Ballroom.
Oh yeah.
And it was Toy Dolls. That's who I remember hearing. James Bond Lives Down my street on Rodney on the Rock, and I was like, "Holy fuck!" And I recorded it, and I sat there and fucking recording music off of Rodney on the Rock on a cassette.
Yeah.
Was that with Butthole Surfers? too?
Yeah,
Toy
Butthole
Dolls and Bubbles? I
Surfers.
was at that show.
Yeah, I was at that show too,
Great show.
and my mom. I was 13 years old. My mom dropped me off, and I remember like standing I had no idea what a fucking slam pit was or anything, right? And just standing right in the fucking middle, and then all of a sudden I was sitting there fucking, yeah, fuck yeah, and then all of a sudden a pit breaks out. I'm like, holy shit, I'm getting jumped. I had fucking no idea what the fuck was going on, you know?
Yeah.
But I fucking loved it, and then I was hooked ever since, you know? And then I got...
I still get in the pit, like when my son has a couple bands. One of them's called Auto, and I actually sometimes I can't help myself, and I'll get into the pit. I'll get into the circle pit, but sometimes it gets a little rough, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, you know, like I'm not
We're getting older
anymore.
It starts to hurt a little bit, you know, the next day.
It's like I'm gonna slip and fall and break something. That's not a good option. But the pit, you know, I get it.
My son plays in a band as well. I don't go in the pit, but his music's a little bit more. A little slower, a little more gun club than punk rock. Yeah, a little more goth.
It's fucking rad though. His band is really fucking good, man. I've been listening to it a lot.
Not bad at all. So
it's nice that, you know, the young people are stepping up and playing real instruments again. You know,
I know.
Yeah.
Being
well,
creative.
you know, dude, the LA
Super
scene
great.
is so different, especially like even from Seattle, right? Like, well, listen, I mean, first off, when I moved to Seattle, I was like, the first thing I noticed, I'm like, holy fuck, there's no fights. And every fight that there was, it was typically me and my friend. but like in LA, like it just seemed like every show always there's multiple fights. But there's such
there was
camaraderie
fights at our
too,
show. It's so funny.
right?
There was some.
Were there really?
Some
Just
fights.
this-
Yeah. We drop these big beach balls that are literally like the radius about 6 feet. And
Oh wow! All right.
And you know, people want them, and
We
they're
got up our
fighting
game.
for
Our
'em.
beach balls are not nearly that big.
Yeah, I know. It's
We need
smaller.
some bigger balls.
They're kind of dangerous.
Fucking
you know?
3-footers over
Yeah,
here.
that's right.
Well, we had the 3-footers, and then they went this direction, and it's like those things will take your neck out. I mean, they're kind of gnarly.
Yeah.
But the dudes, they were brawling for him in L.A.
Oh, man.
But it's really a very diverse audience.
Totally.
You got, like you said, you got folks coming in from the Inland Empire, and then and you got of course the Battle West vest wearing dudes from Boyle Heights and South Central, the Latinos from there with the long hair. You got these cats, and and you got your skaters and
Oh, totally. It's such a fucking again, Metallica is such. I mean, it draws has
and then
such
the
a
commercial
draw.
Metallica fans
Yeah,
too, of course.
And then exactly.
They don't like the mosh pits.
Then it has
those people. Them too.
So you just did Power Trip out in the desert,
Right.
Yeah.
How was that?
That was incredible. We actually were there for the other bands too. So we watched Judas Priest.
So many good bands.
We watched AC/DC. That was really special. And
How was Brian's voice? Good.
Brian's voice, in my opinion, I mean, he's a trooper because you could tell he was having such a good time, but you can also tell that, he was hacking a little bit because there's a lot of dust there.
Oh,
For
yeah.
sure.
And it was, 110,
And it's not easy to sing like that. Jeez,
not
anyway.
easy.
No,
Yeah.
Just
Was
sing like
there a
him,
lot of
yeah.
influencers there? Like a lot of influencers there influencing. What they're.
Well, as far as what influence means to me is like the icons that are up there that that we wouldn't be doing what we do if we didn't have some of these bands. Iron Maiden, was up there, and
Rad.
Well, I was saying that. I mean,
Really
he's fucking.
surreal.
He's 73 years old, still up there, just fucking destroying.
Hey, shut up
it.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
let- He was there. I'd like
I'm
to
not
hear what
far
he
behind.
has to say about it.
But
I'm gonna drink
So
that.
you got to see Iron Maiden, AC/DC, Judas Priest. You mentioned. Who else? Did you
Tool
get to-
played too.
Oh, yeah.
But they were going on right before us. But Justin, the bass player, actually lives in Topanga, close to us, and we're friends with he and his wife. So he's kind of like family. You know what I mean?
All
He's
right.
like neighbor.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny because I saw him before the show, and I go, dude, I'm so used to seeing you in the neighborhood and going to your parties. I forgot that you're in Tool. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because,
yeah.
mate, it's the same thing for me. Here we are sharing the stage. So it was a great time, but definitely a lot.
110 degrees.
Yeah,
that
it was
day?
hot,
Oh,
man.
shit.
Felt sorry for the fans because they're all kind of scrunched in together.
I love it out in the desert. I don't know that I would love playing a festival out in the desert like
It was
that.
a lot of dust, you
Yeah,
know, and a lot of hacking going on, you know. In fact,
Yeah.
there was a moment where Brian from AC/DC, like, you know, like coughed and hacked, but in the mic, like this, to 80,000 people.
Can you remember the hottest show you ever played?
Yes. Believe it or not, one of the hottest shows I ever played was in Iceland.
Iceland? Really?
And that was weird because it was an indoor show, and it was so hot that there were clouds in the arena.
Wow.
Clouds
Wow.
that formulated, and that was hot. We did 3 shows one time in Paris when I first joined the band, and one of those shows was middle of the day. Obviously, no aircon. It was Bataclan, you know, that venue.
Yeah.
And it was a heat wave, and there was a strike.
Oh.
Go figure.
Oh,
Oh,
right. Yeah.
man.
Of course.
There's
So-
always a
France.
strike in Paris. Yeah.
But that Bataclan show was the hottest, the other one. And then there was another one in Paris at the Toulouse, Le Bikini in Toulouse, France. And that was, that was those ones where the moisture's coming off the ceiling.
Oh, yeah.
Like rain.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
It's been a while, but
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
are fun.
Paris was one of the hottest ones we did, and Phoenix, of course, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Phoenix is brutal. Yeah.
You know what though? Honestly, Phoenix to me it's been a dry heat, so it's been doable. Once you start going east and it gets more humid and hot, that's when I get
But
miserable.
Florida
Can be
for
brutal.
Sure,
Yeah,
yeah. Oh, way worse to me than give me Phoenix or Tempe any day. you know?
Dry heat.
Yeah.
You definitely prefer that.
Yeah.
We had a crazy hot show down in Miami a few summers ago, and also Orlando was was extreme.
Yeah.
And then on the day off, this is only like 4 or 5 years ago. And then on the day off, we went surfing, and we were blessed. It's about an hour and a half from Orlando, and the waves were super fun. It
Where'd
was
you go?
Head high.
Where'd you surf?
It was like we were by Cocoa
okay.
Beach.
Yeah.
Yeah. We surfed Cocoa pretty much, but
Okay.
you know, that's what Kirk and I try to do when we're on tour. If there's a beach, we're going to it.
How often do you
know,
get to
we're
do
going.
that? Surf on tour? 'Cause-
We do it as much as possible. I mean, we've surfed in Japan. We've surfed
Wow,
in
I've never surfed Japan.
Yeah, Japan was great, and we always make friends. Australia is always the best.
Of course,
you know,
Dexter and I surfed Margaret's River.
Really?
once. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
A long time ago, yeah.
Yeah, about 20 years ago.
haven't
That's
done
good,
that,
right.
but a lot of surfing on the Gold Coast. And Bells was one of my best surf sessions ever.
Right. I've never surfed there. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
love to do that. Bells is always, I mean, growing up, that was huge.
Yeah. So there was a moment at Bells which was very kind of cool and kind of special for me. And so it was a pretty pump and swell, and I caught this backside wave, and I hit the lip, and stars aligned, and it was actually filmed. And then it was on the newspaper. They
Oh,
had it on the
right,
newspaper.
right on.
So I was like,
Right
yeah,
on.
because normally for me, when there's cameras and everything, you know, they don't get the shot, you know. And I'm not one
Right.
of these guys that's always ripping. I get lucky, you know what I mean?
Right.
And the couple times I remember in France one time with this professional photographer,
Oscar?
friend of yes,
Yeah.
and I go up, I did the perfect sort of backside off the lip. You know, again, I got lucky. The dude was like in his backpack, like grabbing something or getting, you know, I don't know, he was getting a power bar or whatever. and
Missing
he
the
missed the
shot,
shot.
yeah.
And I look at the beach and he's like, dude, he didn't get it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you know, so that one moment at Bells was
Yeah.
memorable just for that reason.
We
'cause
did
they got
we,
the shot.
we did a song and a video called Dahui, and we got to go shoot on the North Shore. And I got to drop in on Johnny Boy Gomes, Sonny Garcia,
Oh man.
and Kala Alexander.
Oh, yeah, I
we
know
all
Kala.
they were all in on
Yeah.
it, and I drop in on him and get barreled at V-Land
wow.
and come out and highlight of my
great.
life. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we got it all on video.
And so basically, they gave you permission to.
of course,
to-
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they get to dunk me too. They
Yeah.
they give me a treatment at some point. Yeah,
we were
yeah.
trying to figure out how to write a surf song because we're huge fans of surfing, but
Yeah.
we didn't want it to come across like we were trying to be cool. And we thought, well, what if we're like the guys that don't know what they're doing, and we
Right.
we drop in on Dahui, which
Right.
obviously they're not going to like, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
they heard the song; it's super like thrashy song. They loved it, and they agreed to do a video with
Right,
us. So we had a mutual friend and stuff. So it was hilarious watching him drop in on.
Oh,
These
Yeah.
guys.
I mean,
It's almost hard to
Johnny
watch,
Boy
right?
Gomes was the one I knew like from growing up and like you
Right.
stay away from him. You don't get
he's
anywhere near
legendary
him.
for
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
yeah.
He was the sweetest guy, just
Yeah.
the nicest
They
guy.
were.
His son and daughter actually just came to our show in Australia
right.
about the beginning of this year.
Yeah,
He was gonna almost rip Kirk from Metallica's head off a couple of years ago.
Really?
Yeah, Kirk dropped in on his daughter, and,
Oh,
and
no.
he didn't do it on purpose, of
Yeah,
course, but
yeah.
but Johnny didn't like that too much, and and Kirk just was
I'm
was a
sure.
little-
And I
I
know
think he was a
Kirk,
little
I'm
nervous about it, but
I'm
then,
sure he apologized
but then
profusely.
they
too.
did,
Yeah,
but then they
yeah,
ran
yeah.
into each other, a couple weeks later, and Johnny was, "It's cool, man, it's cool." Kirk
yeah,
actually, to his credit, he went up to him and said, "Hey, bro, I just want to apologize. I didn't do it. I'm really sorry. I didn't do it on purpose." And Johnny, "It's okay, bro. I know who you are, bro. It's cool." He's like,
Yeah.
Let's go surf together. And
I hear
Hawaii's rough.
Yeah. I hear that Kirk's pretty well connected though. Like he can surf. He can go to
Yeah.
surf spots that like I can't go
He-
unless I go with him.
he's definitely connected. He
Yeah.
knows all the boys,
That's great.
and he's tight with the right people. And he surfs. He's got a knee issue right now, but he surfs like all the time.
Yeah.
And he's got a place over on the North Shore too, so he's definitely in now.
Right.
Which is great.
So
But-
what you've surfed in Hasagor? I've surfed there.
Oh yeah. I just
I've never
surfed
surfed
there.
Japan.
Last summer I was there. Japan, we surfed at Kamakura, and we've surfed obviously again Australia, but we surfed New Zealand.
Yeah, I got to do some surfing in New Zealand.
I've
Small.
surfed in Barcelona, which is kind
Really?
of
Wow.
surreal. Yeah, 'cause
I've seen that break. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't get to surf, but I saw a
Kirk-
break there.
Kirk didn't surf that day. Of course, obviously New York.
Okay.
Had some great. I've always scored in New York. I don't know
Wow,
why.
wow,
About 4 years ago, I got a perfect A-frame overhead day in New Jersey.
Wow.
Nobody out. He was like,
Rad.
"Yeah, no,
Nice.
we surf as much as we can." When I was in Ozzy's band, I used to snowboard all the time, and that was a bit risky because, on a day off, I would travel to go snowboard, and there was also when I was playing in Infectious Grooves in Europe, I would go snowboarding again on a day off, but it would be like the gig would be in like Austria, and I'd go snowboarding in Switzerland and have to take a train
Okay.
to get to the next gig. And Mike, you could tell he wasn't too happy about that. And he goes, I'd call him and I go, "Yeah, I'm on my way." Okay, he's a little. Because it is scary. I mean, anything can happen. And then I
Sure.
realized
You're talking about strikes. It could be strike that you don't get
To miss
there.
the gig, you mean, right?
exactly.
Yeah,
At
yeah.
a certain point, I
Yeah.
realized is really irresponsible, and
Yeah.
so that wasn't going to work too much. So I'm a little more cautious in
There's always that feeling when you're the last guy in the band traveling to the show.
Yeah.
I know that feeling well.
He's always the last guy to get there. Always.
Like, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
But it could be a little nerve wracking, right?
Well, you
Yeah.
have those dreams. I don't know if you guys have those nightmares where you're late to the gig and you're outside on the loading dock and you can't get in and the music's starting to play.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that kind of
yeah.
thing.
I have
I've had those dreams. The worst dream is we're playing the Lyceum at our high school and people are leaving. And then, there's empty seats, or it's like a gymnasium at our high school and people are leaving. I have those dreams a lot.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Occasionally, those reoccur, over your career. I think that's part of what we do,
Our producer, Ben, really wants us to ask you about the Orion Festival
That's right.
that you
Okay.
guys did.
So the Orion Festival we had done, we did a couple of those. New Jersey, Belle Island. No, that was Detroit, right? Yeah. New Jersey was the first one, and it was we did our own festival and tried to make it a lifestyle event. So James had his car collection there, and
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Right on.
and Kirk had his monster sort of collectibles. He's got one of the largest selection of posters, monster movie posters.
Oh, okay. All right.
And
Rad.
he's even got like the wardrobe for.
Is he a big horror movie guy?
Yeah, he's
Okay.
one of the biggest. So he had his deal going, and Lars is a film buff. So Lars had, like a film tent.
Okay.
It was like, sharing some of his favorite films. Trying to think what I did. Oh, I actually jammed with, there's a skater called Tony Trujillo.
Of course.
And he and his wife, Trixie, we did a thing called the Trujillo Trio. So we wrote some hardcore, punk thrash songs and did a set. And then, of course, some of the Vans skate team members were there, like Christian Asoy and Cab and, a lot of these. Omar
Cab's a
Hassan.
great guy.
All the old school guys. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it was cool. I mean, I grew up. Seriously, it's crazy because when I grew up in Mar Vista, Venice, Culver City area, and I grew up around a lot of those Dogtown guys, and of course became friends with them when I joined Suicidal. Jay Adams,
Right.
and Tony Alva is still a friend.
So good.
So having those guys kind of in my life during the Suicidal Tendency years that I was there was really special because when I was a kid, I was like, oh my God, those are my heroes. I used to see Jay Adams out in the lineup at Venice when I was like, I don't know, I must have been about 16, and he'd be out there and I'd be out there. I didn't know him. I knew who he was, of course.
Right.
He had the bald head with the zipper, and he had a camouflage wetsuit. Like basically, he took a black wetsuit and he spray painted it.
He did it himself.
Camo,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he was
Right.
amazing because he was doing a lot of the sort of more surf skate style. He was blasting airs, and his style of skating was obviously a part of his surfing. A lot of guys in the area were doing that. So I was just kind of in awe of him, but I was kind of afraid of him too,
Sure.
'cause, it's like,
he's gnarly.
He came with a lot of characters too.
Yeah.
But there's a guy that I grew up with called Jesse Martinez, who was pretty prominent in the street skate world. So Nadas, Kappas, all these cats.
All right.
Growing up around these guys that really did help skating become what it is now in extreme sports. And then my kids, my son Ty and my daughter Lula, they had skate coaches, growing up. And at a certain point, it's like they decided to be musicians. So you had to make a choice.
Right.
Kind of, 12 years old. It's like, well, they were just like, I don't want to skate anymore. I mean, I don't want to skate with a coach anymore. So basically that was done. And for me, it was like, oh, well, just do the lessons and stay with it.
But if they want to be legitimate musicians, like skating's gnarly. Like I broke my finger skating. And not that 20 years ago, probably.
Right.
17, 18.
I mean, when the dude over at the skate shop at Rip City in Santa Monica, knows that they're playing music, and he's like, as much as they want to sell a board or make a profit, and they say, yeah, it might not be the best idea that your kids are skating. Your son, because Ty did a tour with Korn when he was 12. He subbed for the bass player, and he had to audition
at 12.
At 12, in South America.
Yeah,
and that's
in South America,
that's when things kind of changed in terms of losing the coach and.
Right.
And becoming, committed to music and as a profession sort of. But I remember feeling because I always wanted to be the skater dude, and I just never was great at it. I'll be honest. I skated the parks. I sucked,
Same.
I mean,
I always loved it, but I just was
average.
I wasn't.
Same with surfing. I always loved it. I was never very good.
And same with me. Yeah, I get lucky sometimes, but I don't rip. I don't claim to rip. I had my good days and my bad days. Actually, I was a better snowboarder than any of those things. Like I was actually a decent snowboarder.
Yeah.
I used to snowboard with these pro guys, but I always wanted to be a ripping surfer, and I still do it, but I'm not.
Well, it's hard to be mad though when it's like, hey, I'm 12 and going on tour to South America with Korn.
Yeah,
Right.
So it's like that's pretty fucking cool.
pretty good.
I tried to get my son to surf and skateboard, and he could not be less interested.
Right.
He just not into it at all. He does love music, but he's a good bass player too.
But that's great. Yeah. I mean, creativity is important
Sure.
for
Yeah.
young people.
And you got to let
For
them
sure.
find their path too. I
Yeah.
mean, I can't
Just an outlet
make
for
them
their energy,
Love
yeah.
what I love. They're not going to love what I love. They're going to love what they love,
Exactly.
which
And-
apparently is weed and video games.
that seems to be a common thread
You know,
with a lot of today's
Hard to
Yeah.
compete with.
Yeah.
But it's also therapeutic. I mean, music. During the whole pandemic. I mean, for us and where we live, everybody was, my family's all, my wife and my two kids. They love music. So you got on one side of the house, my daughter's playing drums and practicing. On the other side, Ty's writing and recording. He plays guitar too. And then I'm on the piano. I suck at piano, but I'm trying to play Bach or whatever,
Yes.
Beethoven. And then my wife has her art studio, and she's also writing songs. So it must sound like an insane asylum because we've got, all this crazy.
If you taped all 4 rooms and tried to mix them.
I know. In the canyon, too, it's just echoing through.
Well,
It's
especially during the pandemic when we had live music taken away from us and we weren't able to go either as a fan but also as a performer, we were getting in here and just putting on headphones and listening to what each other are doing and locking in. We started looking at how we're each playing these songs and realize, oh man, I'm not exactly on with the rest of you guys.
Right.
Let's fix that, And so we did a lot of that, and it was fun.
Yeah.
So it'd be like me and Todd and Jonah in the control room,
Right.
just working through all this stuff. It was.
Well, what I can say for us, for Metallica, is we were able to start writing our 72 Seasons album, and at a certain point it was decided, James had sent us an idea via Zoom, and it was what we call Black in 2020, and he did an acoustic version of it, and he said, I'm going to send you guys something. I hope you like it. If you do like it, please play on it. So we all got our home studios, situated and fired up. And mine was in storage for a bunch of years. And I pulled it out and we played on this version and we released it. Nobody knew. I mean, the fans didn't know. And it was great. And it was exciting because we didn't know what James's headspace was at that time. He was going through a lot of changes, and he sends us this song, and we're like, oh, wow. So we were almost going to do another acoustic version of something, and I remember telling Lars, I go, Lars, I mean, everybody's doing acoustic versions or cover songs or whatever, it's like, it's not like so original right now, and we were like, let's start writing, so that's when, the ideas started kind of, like Lars is really good at documenting ideas. Like we have in our tuning room, which is our jam room, and that's where we are before we take the stage, about 45 minutes before we get in there, we warm up and we'll jam through some of the songs we're about to play and, helps us loosen up and get ready. Yeah. But there are a lot of ideas that are birthed there, and a lot of them are coming from James just because he'll pick up a guitar to tune it or to get a sound or whatever, and then a riff will come out of it.
Yeah.
It's like instant.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
you know how
right
you
on.
know what I'm talking about, right?
Totally.
And so there's this whole slew of ideas that originate from the tuning room, and of course Lars has them documented and brings those to the table and starts kind of piecing them together, and then we end up jamming them, and Lars and James kind of, figure out arrangements and get that going, and the producers involved. And, and over time we were able to finally play together. We had to create the bubble, as with that, so we did the bubble thing, and we started actually recording the album. And, as when you haven't played, jammed together in a room with your bandmates in almost a year, it's really cool when you come together. You appreciate, the magic and the energy of playing together.
For sure. Just
and,
resonating with each other.
Exactly. And you're happy to see each other. You're happy to hear, everything, live. And so there's a special quality to what we were able to do on this recent record. And, there's some first takes on there too, which is, not always something that happens in our band. So, I don't know, some good came out of it for us. We like this album. The songs are fun to play live. Tour's going well, blah, blah, blah. We're still in it. We've got a lot of shows coming up still. So
That's great.
There was a wood shedding that a lot of bands did during COVID, right?
Yes.
And that really was kind of productive.
You had to find the silver lining because it was a shit time.
That's
for
for sure.
everybody.
Oh,
So
yeah. Uncertainty sucks, right?
Yeah.
But, you got to kind of, again.
And like I said, we were fortunate enough to where we were in a good place to weather it. Not like you said, not a lot of bands. Some bands sucked. They had to go back and get regular jobs.
Right. Right.
So,
And people were, like you said, the uncertainty, like, we heard nothing's going to happen until 2021. And so it's like, I heard nothing until 2022. And everyone was like, oh my God, how long is it going to be,
Yeah, it kept changing. But again, like in our house, in the Trujillo house, we kind of live up there in the hills and the mountains, Santa Monica Mountains, and we were able to channel our energy individually into art and music and just dive into creativity, I guess you could say.
That's fucking awesome.
That's why I say it's a blessing,
family.
you know what I mean, to have creativity in our lives.
Remember when they shut down the beaches for like 2 weeks and wouldn't let people surf
dude.
and shit?
That's
That was one of the dumbest things they ever
Yeah,
fucking did.
right.
In my neighborhood, I live right by the beach down here in Huntington.
No swimming.
And they did block off like the bike lane for like 2 weeks, literally, and then they just gave up. And dude, being outdoor was probably the healthiest thing to come out of it. And my neighborhood was packed. People on the beach, people on the water, people families riding bikes together. It's gone already. You still see it on weekends a little bit, but not the way you did. I mean, you saw it every day. People got out, and that was, I think those people were smart and did it right.
Yeah,
staying healthy.
We were. I was cooking dinner for the family. Like we were having these family meals, like all four of us at the table together. Tonight it's spaghetti bolognese. This night it's homemade pizzas. I was doing the homemade pizzas. I was the chef. And it was fun. And we would listen to music. Like who do you want to listen to tonight? And we would Black Sabbath. Or whatever. Whatever the choice was.
My wife's a really good cook, so we would do dinners during the day. During the gnarliest part of the pandemic, my dad needs round the clock care, and his caregiver got COVID and was hospitalized for weeks. And we had to just have nobody come in the house, and so I was going over in the morning and kind of taking care of my dad and my brother too at the time, unfortunately. And then my sister would go in the afternoon. So at least I had that time to go kind of help my dad. Wasn't the best. Most uplifting, but I was glad to be able to help my dad.
Sure.
Yeah. He's still kicking.
That's good.
Yeah, we got
good.
round the clock care for him.
Tell him I said what's up. Tell him.
I will.
RT says what's up, Dad.
I will. Yeah, he's a
Tell
good
him
guy.
he's done a great job.
My dad's Mexican too. He's a cholo. He's representing.
That's right.
Awesome.
There you go.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, it's great. One of the things about living in Southern California, it's very diverse and
For
and
sure.
having the urban energy. Like I always say, of course there's Birmingham, Birmingham, England, where, is like the steel town, a lot of great riffs.
I've seen Peaky Blinders.
Well, you know what I'm talking about. But a lot of great riffs came out of Birmingham.
For sure.
Oh,
dude.
Sabbath,
yeah.
Priest, and
the Brummies. GBH.
Diamond Head.
GBH,
Right? Yeah,
GBH.
GBH is an incredible band.
Yeah.
And I feel the same with with Southern Cal. I mean, there's a certain edge to parts of LA that force you to well, you got to protect yourself, of course, and I always say, how did Rain and Blood become such an incredible riff? It's because there's that edge and that the angst and the attitude that comes with that part of LA. How did James Hetfield write such amazing riffs? Well, it's probably being chased by gangs in Downey.
It's Downey.
It's like I mean, there's all, I think, you're sort of a product of your surroundings, And you know, and sometimes there's a bit of danger in that, but it also helps fuel the fire to your creativity.
Absolutely.
And the way of life and what comes of it. I remember, and it's on YouTube actually, but if I'm not mistaken, Henry Rollins' first gig was actually in the Suicidal Tendencies garage. Black Flag played there,
Oh,
and
wow.
there's some Super 8 footage, you know, of them playing, and it's really surreal to see. You see the Suicidal shirts that I was telling you about that Rick Clayton had done with the artwork in the back, and you see Henry with long hair, and you know, and it's a moment, you know, and it's literally in a garage, you know, and that's where it happened. You know,
That's
it happened
cool.
in
That's insane. Yeah.
west side of L.A.
yeah.
So there's a lot of these little kind of interesting moments and details, you know, in the history of where we all
played
came
a
from.
party in his backyard in Whittier, and
Whittier.
the cops showed up, and so we played
Yeah.
LAPD.
LAPD.
Oh yeah.
We
Yeah,
played
they
LAPD
really
for
did.
'em.
And the cops are coming in the riot gear, and there's a helicopter.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
That's
It
what
was
you do.
Yeah, that's
It-
what you
it-
do.
Fucking wild.
And you know, and I'll tell you, you know, with Ozzy, riots. Yeah, we had a couple of those riots, man. You know, where there was the helicopters flying and they were turning over cars, and had one in Columbus, had one down in Irvine Meadows. I mean,
Really? Irvine Meadows, too?
Irvine
Oh,
Meadows,
wow.
yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was crazy.
The only place we've ever had anything like that is, I think, South America. We've had a couple of
Right.
scary
Yeah.
things, like in
Yeah.
Santiago and
Well,
Buenos Aires.
I'm telling you guys, when you played, and of course it was OC territory, but down at Anaheim Stadium, that weenie roast, you guys went on, the crowd was so crazy for you, and I was like, damn, these guys are for real. You know, I was really blown away and impressed, you
That's
know.
awesome. Thank you.
Because it was
Thank
such
you
a
very much.
massive, I mean, it was a huge event.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
a big show.
I think I was closed off to that. I didn't want to think about how big this is, because I mean, I had seen Bowie there. You know,
I saw
Bowie and
Bowie
the
there too.
Go-Go's.
Susie
Bowie-
and the Banshees Open, was that the,
I saw Bowie. It was I think English Beat and Go-Go's opened.
okay, so I saw Bowie there with Susie and the Banshees.
Wow, that'd be great.
Opening, and it was the Glass Spider tour for Bowie. And I'm not kidding, Susie and the Banshees. I love Bowie. I mean, you know, amazing. But they kind of blew him away.
Wow, really? Yeah,
It was kind of gnarly.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's wild.
Yeah. She did that.
I didn't see
That's actually
Susie
crazy.
until we played with Susie in Greece probably 15 years ago.
Oh, right. That's right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
she was phenomenal.
Yeah, she's
Killed it.
awesome. Yeah.
Killed it.
Like all that stuff, you know.
Yeah.
I love all music. I mean, I love, you know, old funk rock from the 70s, like the Ohio Players, Cameo,
Right.
Yeah.
all that. I went through the fusion phase in the 70s, jazz fusion. I even did a documentary about Jaco Pastorius, incredible bass player,
right.
which was 6 years of that was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. Anyway, but also, you know, coming up with the punk scene and you know, having a hand in that, and then of course we're talking about Sabbath and just having all that music growing up, you know, parents that were young enough to share, you know, what they listened to, and just feel blessed.
So rad.
What a story. What a
and
journey.
and also Jerry Cantrell, I worked with him, and you know, that was also another sort of dream come true. So yes, I've been fortunate, I've been blessed, but I don't ever take it for granted. I believe in trying to stay grounded and keeping it real, because, you know, it's just like that, it could change, you know.
Yeah,
you
and that
gotta-
shows. And you know, everyone I know that has ever met you, nobody has a bad word to say about you.
That's true.
You're grounded,
Thanks, for
you
sure.
know, but you're also like, you're competitive, you're on top of your game, but you're not a dick about it.
yeah. We know some of those.
Yeah, some of us are dicks about it. But
Yeah, you know, I think, you know what it is, man. It's kind of how you come up and family and all these things that you learned when you're growing up, man. You
Yeah,
know, the challenges,
for
and you
sure.
apply that to your, you know, I don't know if job's the right word, but you apply it to your profession.
Right, I know.
Because at the end of the day, try to be a team. With Metallica, I'm always like, regardless of the writing process or whatever, if I need to help write something, I'm there. If I need to help kind of work with one of the band members, you know, and partner up and get them through. I try to be there. And that's the thing about being in a band, as you guys know, because you've had, enough members to know that patience is important and personalities is everything. How do you balance the personalities of all these wild characters? I mean, musicians are characters, right? I mean, I was working with Ozzy when he was out of his mind. Zach Wilde was out of his mind. Rocky George is suicidal. Like those guys were. I mean, I always have said I've been blessed with the madness of these people at the maximum, point in their careers. Right. So I had to learn that way, and then I was able to bring some of that into, my position, obviously with Metallica. Now it's been almost 21 years, so
that's wild. Yeah,
21 years, man. Yeah. Time flies.
Yeah. So, I always tell young musicians, man, you gotta.
Do they still treat you like the new guy?
Yeah. No,
21 years.
A little bit.
You're still the new guy.
We've had our moments, man. Where I've had to. I mean, it's kind of funny. Where I've had to stand up for myself, and they accuse me of playing something wrong because they rarely can do that to me, and I actually said I was pissed, man, and I was like, it's this breakdown in Turn the Page where it's just the bass and the vocal, and what happened was Lars gonna probably kill me for saying this, but anyway, I was doing the pulse. I was trying to do it where I mute the strings and I use my thumb. And I was experimenting with this, and my timing was a little off. I kind of messed it up, and we were getting ready to do a live, to play this song live with, we were going to do Howard Stern, and and
so you're gonna do it live in a studio like
so
this.
He called me out on it, and I knew because I screwed it up, and I've never screwed that part up. So he was like, you're not playing it. I mean, are you playing it right? What are you playing? And I was like, I screwed up. My bad. No, but seriously, I mean, what are you gonna play? I said, Lars, I screwed up. Like that. And then I got mad, and I said, put on, because there's a guy that, has everything every show we've ever done. Put on any fucking show right now, and you will not hear a fuck up on that song. I got there, and it turned into this whole thing. And they kind of laughed and smiled, but I was pissed, man. I was like, and it was and again, that was a kind of a recent thing, and it takes a lot to get there, in any situation where you kind of got to stand up for yourself or put your foot down, but I get it. And it was actually good for me because then I went home and I practiced it like 30 times.
Right.
So Lars isn't that crazy.
I dare you to find me, find a flaw in it now, asshole.
I was like, because it's true. I mean, look, I'll be honest. Yeah, it's true. You weren't going to find a fuck up, from the past 20 years. But, hey, tomorrow's a new day, and and I could have probably there's a good chance maybe I would have messed it up. So I was like, I'm not gonna let that happen.
All right. The other thing our producer wants us to ask you about is the time a Manson family member hid in your backyard.
You know about that? Oh damn!
We've heard. It's a legend.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, so long story short, Charlie, world famous,
right?
Charlie Manson just had gotten arrested, and Hawthorne, California. I'm staying at my grandma's house, and my cousin.
So you had to be
my cousin Greg and my cousin Roman. Greg's a couple years younger than me. Roman's my age, and my dad. We were, for some reason, my grandparents were out at an event or something, and we're in the house. The gun shop, the Army surplus shop around the corner on Hawthorne Boulevard, was robbed. And basically, the Manson family had this grand scheme. You can check it out on the internet. They were going to rob the gun store and get their ammo and everything. They were going to go to LAX.
What could go wrong?
Exactly. Yeah. They were on their way they were going to go to LAX, and the plan was hijack, a 747. and demand that Charlie gets sent to them, and they're going to take this plane to God knows where. This is what they were thinking. Obviously, the plan didn't work. Cops show up. There's a shootout. We're hearing gunshots, the whole deal. So all of a sudden, you get the ghetto birds, and they're flying around, and they're talking through their kind of intercom, whatever they got going up there.
Right.
Everybody,
PA,
take cover, whatever. And so my dad turns off all the lights. We're hiding in the shower. And it was really eerie. It was kind of like, I don't know, that scene in Close Encounters where you see the light come through the windows.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So basically between the ghetto birds, the helicopters and the cops shining these bright flashlights, my dad at one point opened the door to see what was going on. They were, get the fuck back in the house now, like that.
Shit.
So one of the Manson members went to the carport because it was an apartment complex. It's one of this kind of Hawthorne style 7-unit places, not huge. And he was hiding back there in the carport. So of course they surrounded our place, and my grandparents, it was their, they owned the unit. So they had the larger unit. And the dude was hiding back there, and luckily there was a laundry room that kind of separated the unit that we were in, and so he would have gone into the window of the laundry room, which could have been the window of the house,
Right.
Yeah. Taken hostage, and so they arrested about 3 of them, and some of them were like kind of like a Squeaky Fromm or somebody might have been in there, like prominent.
Oh, shit.
But the plan was that they were going to hijack a plane at LAX, and they were going to get Charlie released and take hostages, and they were going to fly to, I don't know, Mexico or something.
Wow. That's some SLA shit right
I
there.
know, that's what I was thinking too, SLA,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So crazy, wow.
So in the morning, my cousins and I were looking for bullets, and we were all excited.
Yeah.
But that's a good story. But growing up in Venice Beach and stuff, because my dad, when I was 5 and my parents split, he moved to Venice from Hawthorne. We used to live in Hawthorne. And it was kind of a crazy time because you had a lot of cult groups. The Source was a famous vegan restaurant in Hollywood, and there was that one dude, kind of looks like Rick Rubin. He drove around in the Rolls Royce, and he had a faction.
He wasn't. That's not the Maharishi guy.
It's
in
like
Oregon,
that. It's kind of like that, but
yeah.
it's not that dude. And I know people out there are going to say, that's so and so.
Right.
Yeah. I'm gonna look it up when I get home.
But
I love that shit. That's just
I mean,
great. Yeah.
they were hanging out in Venice, and then you had the Hare Krishna community. They were really prominent in Venice.
Somebody had a house, and it was one of the first. It was kind of culty. That was one of the first sober living kind of places. I can't remember what they were called, and they were like on the beach there. I don't know if it was Venice or somewhere in Santa Monica.
Well, there was a whole scene. So you had all these, in early 70s, you had a whole different
all of them
crop.
There's a movie based on these people, and it's kind of crazy. I watched it. Not too long ago.
So as a little kid skateboarding in the neighborhood, I was, half the time between. I mean, don't get me wrong. I had nothing against the Hare Krishnas, but they scared me. Their look and they,
rightfully so.
They kind of scared me a little bit, and they were loud, and they were like, and everything, and there was just a lot of energy and dancing around, and I was a little kid, like, oh my god. So I had all that around me at Venice Beach, growing
Venice
up.
Venice is known for just its trippy people.
For sure.
For
sure.
A lot of characters.
Yeah.
But again, it's good for riffs.
Yeah, right.
It's good for music.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think we have one more thing. I think that Blackball sent us a joke the other day. It's do we have this?
What?
I think it was
the
you,
bass
wasn't it?
player thing.
Oh yeah.
So it says, can you see it there? Oh yeah, this is a comic. I was shocked to see that bass face is made into the common vernacular.
Yeah.
Oh my
for
God.
one.
You know, we always get picked on. It's
I was
like,
gonna say. I was gonna say. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say not
What, you-
you. I've honestly I've never
You're
seen that
breaking
on
the
anybody.
mold of like, typically
yeah.
bass players.
Is that a thing? I guess. Are there a lot of guys out there with bass face?
I think that you know, that could be a thing. I mean, but I always think, you know, for me, the bass is an instrument. Like if you make a mistake, everybody hears it. I mean, because the rhythm section keeps the pulse in the groove.
sure.
But for
Yeah.
some reason, like that's why if you think about like Zeppelin, for instance, I mean Jimmy Page, yeah, he's a legend, of course, but not always. He was not always the most perfect player, or rhythm player, you know, for whatever reason. But you know, John Paul Jones held it down, and Bonham, and they made, you know, a nice foundation, very comfortable fit there, so that he could do what he needs to do, and they would keep it tight. Same thing with the Rolling Stones, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and those guys could kind of, you know, they had a little room to flail, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So as a bass player, you know, we always gotta make sure that the foundation is solid, you know, drums and bass, because bass makes a mistake and everybody hears it, and then you're gonna make that face.
Yeah,
So,
that's the face.
yeah.
That's the
Yeah,
face.
you
Well,
know.
that's true. There's you can't have two like you can have two guitar players, you can have three guitar players. You can't have two bass players. It'll just be competing. It would be mud.
Yeah.
You need the one bass. You need it locked
Right.
in.
In
you know,
traditionally,
you're absolutely right. You're
yeah.
You're out. You know,
I mean,
your
I-
ass is in the wind, man. And people hear it.
It's kind of crazy because I write, you know, with, I mean, obviously different types of musicians, but I actually write with bass players too. And it works because you can do, there's, I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's like a piccolo bass, which is actually a mid-range or a higher register. It's a higher register of the instrument. And then there's kind of a more of a mid-range, a tenor bass. And those are pretty good weapons, you know, because it's like cellos, you know what I mean? Cellos have a certain sound and a resonance and a presence that's really edgy, and it's good for heavy music. So, you know, I'm always trying to be open to creating with, you know, different types of players and musicians, and, you know, and just have fun.
Oh, totally.
Do you know Todd?
No.
Todd Morris? He's from H2O.
Yeah,
he was our utility guy, but he moved up to bass about 5 years ago.
Right.
And he's
because he
phenomenal.
played guitar. I remember him as a guitarist. with
guitar
you
and backing
guys.
vocals.
Yeah.
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 And
Now he's bass player extraordinaire.
You know what? And he took it seriously. He took lessons. He he learned the difference between playing guitar and playing bass and locking.
yeah,
in.
I mean,
It is a different instrument.
Different animal.
It is, you know. Yeah, you would have to, because some guitar players that play bass, they get super busy, you know. I mean,
Right.
You know, and
Lead bass.
Yeah, and
Where's the solo go?
it's like support instead of supporting the song, they're kind of, you know, I mean, and then there's a way to do it to where it's amazing. Like Geezer Butler from Sabbath, he can hold down the pocket.
totally.
And
But
he's
it doesn't sound like he's playing lead.
No,
but
it doesn't.
But he's not just sitting root notes
because
either.
he's complimenting the song, you know, and in a very
100%.
tasty way. Same thing with John Paul Jones, you know, Paul McCartney, you know, all these kind of guys. You know, I always kind of pull from my influences, and depending on the song, I try to cater to the song first, and then, you know, find the pocket, but also find a place where there can be something, you know, a little extra if needed. You know, you learn that with time and you know, I guess experience. Yeah.
So you just knew, like, right out the gate, you wanted to be a bass player. No guitar, no nothing.
Interesting story. Originally, I wanted to be a drummer, and then we lived in an apartment, and my mom and I, my mom, you know, my dad was you know, again, they parted ways when I was 5. So he was instrumental in helping me take, like, my first amps didn't work, but he was a carpenter, you know, by trade. So we were able to refinish them and then trade them because they look so cool.
Yeah.
And it was like, it just needs a speaker, but look how, you know, it looked, you know, we would
Right.
take
That's great.
you know, we'd take the material off of it and get some hip material and reupholster them and everything. And we did that with basses too, where we put stripper on and we took all the paint off. And then we re-stained them and made it look beautiful. But they didn't work through an amp. But I was able to use it as a trade-in to get an instrument. But before that, my dad had a friend who, because I wanted to play drums and I couldn't play because of the apartment building. And then they gave me a pad, and I didn't want to play the pad because it's boring. So I couldn't do that. And then I wanted to play keyboards because I thought Keith Emerson from Emerson, Lake Palmer looked really cool. And I couldn't do that either because my mom got me a plastic organ. I couldn't even play a chord on it. It was like just, one note.
Right.
Then I was like, wait, I can't even play chords. And then, piano was too heavy. Couldn't get that in the apartment. So my dad had a friend who had a hollow body bass, and he let me borrow it for a year. Didn't work through an amp. Again,
The hollow body, you were
Hollow
able to
body.
figure it out.
I was able to figure it out. Action was an inch off the neck, and basically, I practiced all the time. I did scales, and I used to play through my stereo, and then I had seen some really cool footage from, I think it was Cal Jam.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Might have been the bassist for like Rubicon or somebody.
Yeah.
And I was like, he did a bass solo, and I go,
that's going back a ways.
so that's the instrument. That's what I'm good. Okay, that's what I want to play. And I was also influenced by a lot of Motown and Parliament and all these kind of groups. And I realized that the bass was kind of the instrument that was, holding that stuff down and speaking to me.
Rad.
Totally.
So here I am.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
When I hear old songs, whatever, I can't help but, of course, pull it apart. But I really focus on the bass a lot now because the bass is what's driving the whole thing, right? So it's really interesting to hear what guys do.
Well, that was the amazing thing with Cliff Burton is, his musicality, with this genre, thrash, metal, was incredible. He's bringing the bass in as a melodic instrument, which had only really been done, mostly done by a lot of the jazz kind of types and the jazz fusion,
right.
electric jazz. They were more the soloists at the time, and they were using the bass in more of a melodic way. And he brought the personality of the instrument in the genre, and Metallica was able to have someone like that in their band, and that was really very cutting edge, and,
Yeah,
totally.
And
For sure.
it was
Big
obviously-
shoes to fill too. For
Oh
you.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, huge shoes.
Yeah.
But the thing for me is again, loving so many different styles of music, and then trying to learn and grow and adapt. And I had to learn how to do what I need to do for Metallica. It's not that easy. There's a lot involved. Playing songs like Orion, where there's actually solos, and Call of Cthulhu is kind of I don't know. You don't always hear it in the mix, but there's a lot going on in there, and there's actually structure to it with the bass. So it's fun to dissect songs and find your place, and just keep learning.
For sure.
Awesome.
For sure. Wow. I mean, what great stories. I mean, geez,
Thanks, man.
thanks you
Appreciate it.
for joining us and
Yeah,
stuff.
thanks
and,
for coming down, man.
you
Thanks
know,
for having
I
me.
mean,
man.
it's not
appreciate it.
it's not even just such a great success story, but it's really very inspirational. I think it's really amazing. So thank you for sharing.
Well, yeah, man, I appreciate it. And again, it's so crazy that we have a lot of the same musician friends, and between sort of the Fletchers and the Brookses and the Josh Freezes and Brand, Mr. Perchborn,
Of course.
and it's great to finally hang with you guys and
We call him B. Randon.
be Randon.
B. Randon.
Oh, be Randon. Yeah,
Sounds like
he's
a course in a Japanese restaurant. But
well, he's the real deal, man.
Oh, he's so
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
I'm so glad he's
Yeah.
playing with you guys because that dude is a monster.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
and this is
So
great for
fun.
him.
Just a
Great for him.
neat, just a decent guy too.
Absolutely,
Yep.
absolutely.
Him and his wife Emily.
Yeah.
I asked him, you know who his dad is, or our father-in-law is. So I said, "Do you skate?" Randy goes, "Not anymore. I'm a drummer." Like
Right,
he doesn't
right.
want to break any
Same
wrists.
thing.
So I was like,
Well,
"Yeah,
Same
good for
thing.
you."
His
Good for you.
dad, Mike, is also a badass, and
It's
there's a
his
lot of
father-in-law, right?
there's a lot of folklore
his-
in there.
yeah.
yeah. I mean, about him, and I mean, it's funny because we can tell these folklores. Oh, he once got jumped and he beat 3 guys' asses.
Seen
man.
the video,
you
yeah.
know, and it's like, you know, and he sings in Black Flag,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
and it's like,
Mikey B,
yeah, and he's actually really good friends with Mike Muir. Go figure, right? You know.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Well, Mike's brother, Jim Muir, Red Dog. You know, if you see the documentary Dogtown Z Boys,
Yeah.
he's prominently featured in there. But he was a badass, and obviously, I'm sure that had everything to do with Mike, kind of growing into his own shoes and finding his path because of him. So
For sure.
Right.
that's how it was.
Awesome.
That's right.
But
Right
thanks
on, man.
again for coming down.
Thank
man.
you very
It was
much. So great to have you.
Yeah,
Cool, man.
It was great picking your brain. It's
Yeah.
been a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me.
See you out
Appreciate it.
there.
Yeah.
All right.
Super.
Cool, man. Cheers.
Cool.